Hello, intrepid viewers. I'm coming to you from Friday in Australia, wearing a polar neck sweater. It's getting cold here. We're going into winter. So it's like it's going to be easier for isolation in winter than summer, but then the disease is sort of worse in winter. So it's all a trade-off, isn't it, really? So I was listening to one of my favourite astrologers last night from the UK. She's one of those people who's very uplifting. And she was saying how it's changed our social norms. You know, when the delivery guy comes for one of the things you've ordered online, she said her whole household rushes out to meet the delivery guy because they're so starved for social contact, you know. But she also raised a point. I don't know if you found this, viewers. When you're on a phone call to someone, often a family member or something, and you needed to get away, you could always say, sorry, got to run. And now it's really hard to get away with that. So there are all sorts of things being challenged by our self-isolation. There's all these happy pets who've got their owners at home. But as I've said previously, not all families are bastions of unconditional love and warmth and support. So there's tricky stuff being negotiated out there as well. Now, first of all, I want to pay tribute to those voters in Wisconsin who were refused access to an absentee ballot, and they got out and they stood in line for hours. Did you see that sign someone had, just a cardboard sign going, "This is ridiculous"? It's gone viral, but good on them for doing it. Let's hope that's a precursor. Remember come November. So today, as one viewer said, so much dirt, so little time. So I wanted to cover today what's happening about those Apprentice tapes and other illegal things that the crime family are doing. I promised you a little mini read about Robert Kennedy's granddaughter, and I forgot about it, so I'm going to do that. The Michigan protest, you know, people in their cars wanting to get out from social isolation and what that means. So I think I'll do that first. So the question sort of has to be, will there be more protests like the Michigan one about people resenting and resisting staying at home? Let's see about that. Of course, we can't go back safely until there's a vaccine. So we're talking about going back not safely. The next thing we need is testing. And no country in the world has enough tests, but most of us, I hate to say it, guys, are doing better than the US. Your testing rates, I think, are actually going backwards, according to Rachel Maddow anyway. It's shocking. And without testing, you can't keep track of community transmission. Therefore, people are going to be exposed in the workplace. But let's look at the possibility of people wearing masks and gloves and going back to work and how people want to do that. So we'll do that in the form of looking at the Michigan protest. Will there be more protests like Michigan? Bring you down here. I wonder, 6 of Wands, victory. Well, it is a very emotional issue, understandably. So on top, here's the Apprentice card, the card of working on the details. I think this has two meanings. It's, on the one hand, people wanting to go back to work. This is a worker. And there's also the other meaning, which is all the states are looking at how to step through the process of going back to work. All countries are doing this too. And even the most dumb and belligerent people realise there needs to be a staggered sort of going back, except, of course, for the Yeti, who thinks it should all go back to business as usual yesterday. So I think that speaks to both the workers and individual governments, state governments, trying to work out how to do it. This was the protest itself, the raised sword. Now, the thing was the Page of Wands. There's an energy to the Page of Wands, the upraised sword. That's why I see it as the protesters making their statement. The thing with the Page of Swords is there can be a righteousness to the Page of Swords. I'm right and everyone isn't. It's like we all understand why people are desperate to go back to work to feed their families. Well, first of all, the checks. Have they been arriving? I hope so. Signed, Donald J. Trump. But because they had to be held up for his name to be put on all of them, and I suspect it's going to take a long time to roll out those checks. So yes, we understand why people want to go back to work, but the Page of Swords isn't a good listener. So we've got to be careful and keep the information coming out. This is in Australia as well. Everywhere else is dealing with the same issues, to try and temper that on some level and at least try and do it as safely as possible. Here's the King of Cups here. Rarely do I see the Yeti as the King of Cups, because the King of Cups deals with emotion and the Yeti doesn't have any. But in this case, it's the rather deceitful King of Cups. Usually the kings and queens, for those of you learning tarot, are good folk who represent their suit and their element, and it's not that common to have them in their negative aspect. But this is a negative King of Cups. I'm quite clear it's the Yeti, and that's him using the social manipulation and the emotional manipulation to whip this up either prematurely or to reassure people that it is safe to go back when it isn't. So I'm not saying people shouldn't and won't go back. They will, I'm sure. But it has to be done safely, and that's not going to happen because they're going to be told it's all over and everything's fine. This is the new leader. This new leader keeps on turning up. Now, I hope this is tarot with the timelines and we're talking about the new Democratic leader for 2021, please. But even if it isn't, I said it in a previous reading, there's going to be someone else taking the microphone, if you like, to guide America through this process. And I very much doubt it's Mike Pence, who doesn't have a personality. Trump has a huge personality, no brain, no soul, huge personality. Pence doesn't have any of the above. He is a blank page. So I think it's not going to be Pence. This could be Cuomo in a way, even though he's still doing it tough. New York could be Cuomo, or one of the other governors comes to the fore. This is an emotional issue. And with the Ace of Cups, it can be overflowing joy and satisfaction and emotion in that sense, or it can be gushing too emotional and not quite using the rational aspect of the swords to work out how to do this well. So in answer to the question, I think more people in more states will do this, but a compromise has to be reached so people are safe. Now, vets, once again, it's something I'm passionate about because my father was a returned soldier. And for those of you who have been intrepid viewers for a long time, you might know I spent 5 years of my childhood from the age of 10 visiting the war hospital in Queensland every day, seeing these men. This was 15 years after the war, and they were still in hospital because their injuries were so severe. And so it's a subject that's very close to my heart. I do feel for vets. And at the moment, according to Rachel Maddow, 1,500 staff have tested positive, with 13 staff dead, and 4,200 vets have tested positive, with 257 deaths. And every government should make more of an effort to support veterans. They all do the wah-wah, but they don't do it. So vets need support now. Okay, I'm going to look at the criminal behaviour of the Yeti and his demon spawn. So included in this question, there's the incident that is coming to light now where Trump and Ivanka were pushing these video phones years ago at the beginning of The Apprentice. And then, of course, they were superseded by every other sort of technology. Ivanka selling people properties in Panama using the old trick. There's only 2 left. The others have flown off the plans, only 2. And then you go and buy one and find you're the only one who's bought one and they're not built yet. You know, that sort of thing. Their charities, stealing from their own children's charities. Special place in hell. Speaking of Ivanka, she and her husband have been put on the committee for reopening America. Now, can't you just imagine Ivanka's advice on this? She would know, wouldn't she? So she'll be saying to you all, now, just get tutors for your children and go back to work because you're a busy woman. And I make sure my gardeners and my pool attendants wear masks, you know, and my cooks have all been tested because I'm a really busy rich person and I can afford to get the test privately. So that's what you need to do, America, before you go back to work. So she's really got her finger on the pulse, hasn't she? So all of that, I'm reading on their collective corruption. This is a bigger spread. Is anything going to translate to dislodging these grotesque caricatures of people? So I'm going to use a spread I've only found again recently. So let me talk you through it. I'm using the shapeshifter cards here. Okay, so we have the issue. I'll have to put these together. Well, it's very apt. The Magician card. You got to hand it to the Yeti. He is a magician. He gets away with things that would have sunk another 14 presidents, right? And he keeps getting away with it and getting away with it. So the magician in tarot commands a lot of power and the ability to transform and beguile. So the question becomes, for my students, I use my arm here. And congratulations to my graduating students. You're all doing very well. And the new intake is now up and running. But I use my arm in the absence of more technological improvisations. Cards have their base meanings all the way to their higher meanings. So with the magician, you ask yourself, is this person operating at a base level, or are they trying to help humanity go forward and have the higher good? And I'll let you decide which end of the arm belongs to the Trump crime family. Okay. The next position, what is coming into view? Theft. Couldn't be more apt. What is passing? The good times. Celebrations, success, all of that is in the position of what is passing. Now, what underlies this? The Nine of Wands being embattled. What underlies the issue of them getting away with all this ongoingly is they've been able to keep battling regardless, because The other question, what should be done, is shining a light on their nefarious activities. But they've managed so far. There's been a few scars along the way, a few wounds, but not enough, nothing too serious. So what is the most important thing in relation to this reading? From their point of view, to keep it afloat, to keep fighting. Notice how similar these cards are. This is the one in between skirmishes. Now, this is the sole person fighting off the enemies. I think although they've kept the clan fortress intact, behind the scenes, they're all fighting for themselves and survival, not the collective. And the outcome, they're juggling and further manipulation. So there's not a clear-cut answer, oh yes, they're all going to go to jail, etc., etc. The manipulation's going to continue for a while yet, but not forever, because it's also the juggler, and eventually the juggler drops a ball. So more manipulation, more lawyers getting rich. Okay, so will he get away with adjourning both chambers of Congress? That's an important question. Will the Yeti be able to basically disband Congress? Surely not, but we've given up being shocked, really, you know. We've given up being shocked. As one newscaster said, the funeral is being held for shock and outrage. It's actually dead, you know. Nothing. You know, saying he has total control. He's backpedaled from that already, but, you know, he's such a dictator. The only thing, intrepid viewers, the only thing, in my opinion, that stops him being an out-and-out dictator is he's so inept, and he only surrounds himself not with the best people, but sycophants. Therefore, he's not an efficient dictator. It's the only thing saving the country. So where was I? Will he be able to disband Congress? Page of Swords comes up again. All right, Page of Swords, spy in the camp. So I think someone will be leaking, or someone giving the heads up if he goes any further down this particular track. People will know about it. In other words, he can't hide it and just do it. There will be some form of exposure with the Page of Swords. But he feels, because he's such a child himself, he's barely more than a page on a good day, the upraised sword, this is still on his mind. It's not one of those things he's forgotten about after lunch. He's doing this for Russia. This is business deals over the water. Why is he doing this? He's showing Putin that he too can be the authoritarian leader. Loves the idea. He's holding his cards close to his chest, but it's right underneath the Page of Swords. This is his Gemini ambivalence too. He wants to keep certain things secret, but he can't because he's got such a motor mouth and tells the world. So the Page of Swords is working against the secrecy. His natural impulse as being, you know, he's on a par with Fred Flintstone. This is my Fred Flintstone card. You know, I like Neanderthals, otherwise I'd describe him as a Neanderthal. He's going to give it another bash for sure, but America stands up to it. This is my America card more commonly. Oh, thank God for that. Okay, now now the reason I want to look at the death of Robert Kennedy's granddaughter and her son, from the moment I saw the first news item when they were still missing but presumed drowned, my intuitive radar just leapt. It would have normally been a news item I would have skimmed over. We all know the Kennedy curse, and frankly, I'm not a celebrity worshipper, so I would have passed on, but I got an immediate association with Natalie Wood. Right. Remember that went on for years. This has been ruled an accidental death, but I'd just like to have a peek, just for my own satisfaction. What went on? It just doesn't sound right to me. What fell out? Strength card. Does anyone know about that marriage? Was the husband around when this happened or not? Okay, let's remind ourselves of what happened. The mother and the 8-year-old were playing on the edge of a lake. The ball bounces into the lake. Weather conditions on that day were really choppy, waves apparently over a metre. She decides to go out with the 8-year-old in a canoe onto the lake that's doing this right now. I'm sorry, every other mother in the world would have said, "Hun, sorry, that ball's gone. The water's too risky." The strength card. She possibly thought, in fairness here, I'm getting away from my own conspiracy theory, she might have thought, I'm a strong rower, I'm a Kennedy, I've grown up on these lakes, I can do this. The King of Wands, I think, is her husband. That's why I asked the question. I'm not sure how he figures in this. Was he in the house and not on the bank, or was he out of the picture, or is there someone else in the picture? She wasn't that happy in the marriage, I'm here to tell you. Intergenerational wealth, the 10 of Pentacles. My impression is she was not phenomenally wealthy, as 1% of Americans are phenomenally wealthy, given they own 90% of what is shared by the others. But her idea of not being a rich Kennedy would be very different from your idea and my idea of not being rich. So money's involved. Next to this hostage card, I don't like it. And I don't even know who her father was. That's the missing generation. She's the granddaughter of Robert. I don't know who her father was. I think he did some damage emotionally. This is another twisted King of Cups. And I think her husband was overbearing, this woman. So I'm not getting, I'll back away from that theory. I just thought I'd include you while I was looking at it. I don't think she was killed by the husband or he ordered it or anything. I think it was unfortunate. So I'll back away from that, but I'm more satisfied now than I was. Okay, to finish. Yeah, stopping funding to the WHO. I mean, how diabolical, what can you say? I'm not going to read on it. Food supplies, I might leave that for the next video. What I'm hearing about food supplies is there might be shortages of certain things in supermarkets, but there's warehouses of commercial quantities of everything because the restaurants and hotels and everything are closed. So they're trying to turn these huge, 20-pound sacks of flour into normal packets, and same with every product, so don't worry too much about that. So I've got your requests here. Quite a few people want to know whether Cuomo will go for president. He's saying no, but that never means anything. Let's have a look at that and a quick look at Biden. Will Cuomo go for president? not necessarily even this cycle, but he'll be well placed for the next cycle. Look how Giuliani milked his mayordom, and Cuomo's done a lot more than that. So will Cuomo go for prez? No, is the answer to that. His wife doesn't want him to. She's saying, you think it's bad now, it would only lead to more anxiety and stress and heartbreak. So it's her. Is the mother still alive? Could be the mother. If not, it's his wife saying no. That'd be no. All right. And a quick look at Joe Biden. Both the Obamas are on board now, giving momentum from here on in the campaign. I have to say again, viewers, I've never had a wonderful feeling about Biden. It's hard not to like him, but I don't know. He's sort of a democratic version of Pence almost, isn't it? I mean, he doesn't move you when he speaks. But like I said, I'm Australian. It's not my country. If he provides comfort to middle America, who would not normally vote for a Democrat, that may be his karmic role. Far be it from me. So I'm not reading it on that level. I'm just simply saying, how's he holding up at this point? Because it's only the beginning of ramping up the campaign. Look, you know, it's funny with tarot. Here comes hope and inspiration, the USA, loving that on top. But his personal cards are not merveilleux. His hands are tied, whether through habit or physical limitations or mental exhaustion or whatever. Yeah. Here's our card du jour, the Page of Swords. It's amazing, isn't it? 78 cards in a deck, and it's come up 3 times today. So you're getting to know lots of meanings of the Page of Swords. And as you can see, they all have multiple meanings, and you have to pick, as a reader, you have to pick an emphasis in a reading for what each card represents. And for this, I'm saying he won't be inspiring to young people, but young people also may be excited by the Bernie legacy and his appointment of vice president. There's a youthful element here, and it's not Joe. So I think if Bernie, unlike the Hillary campaign, and who can blame him, I think with this one, the world is in a different place and the US is in a different place. I think Bernie might actually do canvassing with young people to say, look, we need to do this. I've had talks with Biden. He's agreed to a few of my things. Your vote is not lost on him. I think it's that energy of the Page of Swords energizing the young ones. Back to Biden himself, this is probably what he feels like most days. He'd rather have a lie down and a cup of tea, but he gets out there again. All right then, everyone, I'm about to be interrupted by a flatmate, so it's perfect timing, and I'll see you very soon. Bye for now. Good timing, Tez.